I just want to welcome Coach Bronson to Chezzies Digestive Harmony. Coach Bronson is a health coach, author, and public speaker committed to guiding individuals in enhancing their lives through fitness, nutrition, and mindset improvements. Welcome, Coach Bronson.
Hey,
Nice
thanks
to
for having
meet
me. I
you.
appreciate it, Sherry.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about pros and cons of low carb lifestyle. Um, can you explain what a low carb diet entails and what typically constitutes a low carb approach?
Yeah. And this is might be different than what a lot of people think. We hear keto particularly, and people think, "Oh my God, you got to eat all this fat." That
Yeah.
is not necessarily what the ketogenic diet's all about. So, the variations, and one of the things I want everyone to get is that there is no one real definition for any of these things. What one person's low carb may be another person's keto, and maybe another person's zero carb.
Oh,
So the idea about what we're trying to do when we talk about, in general, lowering our carb intake is more beneficial than specifically talking about what is low carb or what is keto. So the various kind of social community definitions, I guess you could say, is low carb is generally reducing your carbs to somewhere between 100 or less, 50, between 50 and 100 grams of carbs per day.
oh,
If you go below 50, 25 to 50 generally is what people would consider keto. Anything below that is getting more towards the zero carb or carnivore type lifestyle. Um, all of them are low carb.
oh,
So the idea of just generally reducing your carb intake is really what we're talking about. It's also coupled with generally increasing your meat intake and reducing your processed food intake. So it's the most beneficial when we talk about going low carb as the overall umbrella of what
excuse
we're
me.
talking about. Going low carb is the most beneficial to someone's general health and fitness and lifestyle in the context of increasing meat, decreasing processed foods, and decreasing excess carb intake. And that can be different for everybody. Some people that could be, hey, I'm eating 300 grams of carbs. I need to go down to 100. Some people, based on what they're eating, it may not be a carb issue. It may be something in a certain type of plant. Maybe it's a nightshades issue that reducing all nightshades from my diet essentially is also reducing my carb intake. I don't need to replace those nightshades with something else just to get carbs in, but I can drop my carbs
Mhm.
by dropping those nightshades out of my plan
Yep, yep,
and get
yep.
the same types of benefits. So there's a lot of different ways that go with it, but it's really just about what is it you're trying to do?
Mm,
How are carbs? Because in general, if we think of the baseline of nutrition, in general, human beings currently in modern society are eating more carbs than we have ancestrally than we need. I mean, if we get into the science of it, we don't need to eat carbs at all.
yes,
That doesn't mean we can't or shouldn't. That's a whole different conversation. So reducing carbs in many people's case is beneficial because we tend to overeat them.
yes,
And that's really where the discussion lies. It's really in if I'm eating more than I need, way more than I need, and in at to the detriment of the other things that I need too.
yep,
And that's the other side of the coin. It's not just, well, we need to cut out carbs. It's we need to cut out carbs in many cases, but also most people aren't getting enough protein. Most people aren't getting enough good fat. Most people aren't getting enough micronutrition. So it's what are we really trying to do and how are we getting the most optimal nutrient density and bioavailability as possible?
yep.
And in most cases, that means cutting out carbs because they're the least beneficial in general.
Okay. In terms of like energy, um, we do need like complex carbohydrates. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so the energy perspective of carbs is something that our body handles internally. We don't have to eat carbs to get that.
Mm,
So there's a process called gluconeogenesis where our
yeah,
body can break down these substrates from fatty acid oxidation. It can break down lactate. It can break down amino acids. It can break down the glycerol backbone of fatty acid. Like there's a whole bunch of things that our body can use to generate energy.
yes,
And none of it has to come from anything that we eat from a carb perspective. So, and this is again, words mean things and how we say things matter.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
this is where I think a lot of the dogma and the fanaticism around different nutrition plans or protocols really kind of
Yeah.
sets people off. The idea that when we say carbs are not essential is not the same thing as saying our body doesn't need glycogen or glucose for fuel,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
So what we're saying is in order for your body to utilize glucose for energy, it can get that from the things you're already doing, that things that you have in your body. It can get that from the fat and the protein that you eat. There is nothing about exogenous carbohydrate intake that
Yeah.
is required for you to function. So yes, we do need we do need air quotes carbs. It's really glucose. We need glucose for fuel for certain activities and
Yes.
certain parts of our body, but that doesn't mean we have to eat it. Now, at the
Mm.
same time, that doesn't mean it's wrong to have it,
No, it just depends
right?
on your lifestyle, I guess, too. Like if you're an
Exactly.
athlete, pro athlete, God, you need carbs. You do need a little bit, to fuel you. Like if you're an athlete running all
Well,
the time.
actually, you don't,
Okay.
and that's also some new science in the past 5 to 10 years that's coming out
All
too. Is
right. Cool, cool. Thanks for
understanding,
telling
yeah,
me.
understand. So you can do, I mean, we've been doing it for 50, 60, 70 years, right? We've been utilizing carbs as a source of fuel for physical activity. The
Yes.
last 5 years in particular, we're finding out that there are other options, that fatty acids and ketones do a lot of the same things
Yep.
at a lot less cost for a lot more energy
Mm,
than than glucose does.
mm,
So there are people right now, I'm one of them, who are doing high intense activities who don't eat carbs.
mm.
I eat less than 5 grams. A high day of carbs for me is 10 grams of carbs.
Wow.
And I've been doing that for 6 years. And I have only
Wow.
gotten more active and more, my performance has only improved. There's somebody, I can't remember his name, a couple months ago who ran 5 marathons in 5 days,
Wow.
fasted, didn't eat
Wow.
the entire time,
And he's probably
right?
trained his body. He's had like his body's used to that now,
Yeah, there's
you know?
there's an adaptation, and this is one of the big challenges that I find as a coach in the fitness space when I'm dealing with competitive athletes, and I talk to them about, hey, there are some benefits to becoming a ketogenic athlete from a recovery perspective, from a reduction of injury perspective, from a reduction of inflammation
Yes.
perspective. There's a lot of benefits of being fat adapted and doing intense exercise.
Yeah.
Um, Many of them, particularly competitive athletes, don't want to make that change because there is an adaptation period where they're going to see their performance drop first.
Oh, what,
So when you make that switch, and that's where
yeah.
a lot of people think, well, I stopped eating carbs and my performance went down. I have to have carbs. You don't.
What is the
Is it an adaptation
adaptation
period?
period? Sorry, coach. What's
Yeah.
the adaptation period? Is it like, because I went on a ketogenic years ago, but
Hmm.
I just couldn't sustain it. I just
Hmm.
couldn't sustain it. I actually ended up in the hospital. So
Yeah.
I just
Yeah. There's a
couldn't,
lot.
yeah, I did it too hard, I think. And the thing is, I don't think I cycled enough. Like I could have just
Mhm.
cycled it,
Yeah.
you know? Keto
Yeah, everybody's
cycling.
different. Everybody's
Yes.
different. There's
Yeah.
there's aspects like I went because I was pretty low carb already. I didn't do
Right.
processed foods. Most of my carbs, even when I did do non-animal based foods, was mostly green vegetables, right? A
Ah,
squash here and there, a sweet potato here and there. I didn't do a
yes.
lot. So
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
I went carnivore 6 years ago, I did it overnight. So my transition was fairly easy. But even with that, it took me about 3 months for my physical performance to get back to where it
Um,
was before I started.
okay.
I had a dip.
Okay.
I had a dip in performance. So
Yes.
what happens is there's multiple phases of adaptation. And when we talk about ketogenic metabolism in the human body, there's three main phases that I break it into. And there's the just the initial phase of your body getting used to what am I doing if I don't have carbs? If I'm
Mm,
not putting carbs in my mouth, my body has to get better at making its own carbs when it needs
mm,
it. It also has to get better at pulling fat off of my body to use fat for fuel.
yes.
So
Yeah.
there's a whole process of my body, because I'm not putting all this extra fuel in my face, my body has to learn how to pull it from my body. So there's a system there that has to improve.
Yep.
Once that improves, then there's another level of, okay, now my body's used to pulling this all out. There's another step of the ketone production where we talk about being in ketosis. Okay,
Yes.
you hear that phrase all the time. The levels of ketones in your blood go up the more fat you burn off your body. Basically, that process has to then become efficient. So now your body gets good at pulling fat, it gets good at making glycogen when it needs glucose when it needs it. Now your body's getting good at making ketones and having ketones readily available for fuel for that physical activity.
Mm,
The third level is when your body's good at breaking down fat, when your body's good at making ketones, now it has to get good at using them.
mm,
So a lot of people think that the ketogenic diet, and this is one myth about the ketogenic diet, the ketogenic diet is about having high ketones. We have to be in ketosis in order to be ketogenic. That is false. Ketogenic means your body is making ketones.
yes.
If you have a lot of them sitting around in your blood not doing anything, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And you
So
want to
when
use fat stores too, like
yeah, exactly. It's just like having excess body
efficiently,
fat.
efficiently,
Yeah.
you know?
When your body gets good at using the ketones and you see your ketone numbers go down over time,
Yeah.
that's when you are adapted and that's when physical performance starts improving because now you can actually use the fuel from the ketones
Yes.
instead of using glycogen as much.
Yep.
So that's where you become a keto adapted athlete. And that's where everything starts really
And that
skyrocketing.
fasting too, you're in a fasted state too. You can reach the ketosis being in the fasted state also.
Yeah. Well, the ketogenic diet is what we call a fasting mimicking diet. So you don't actually, you get all the benefits from fasting without having to fast.
Yeah, because you're just not having like
Because you're
carbohydrates.
just taking out the carbs. Because
Yes.
a large part of the current definition of fasted or starvation is a lack of carbohydrate for fuel.
Yes.
So even if you can give your body all the nutrition that it needs
Yes.
and technically be in starvation because you're not getting the carbs. So your body
Yes.
changes how it metabolizes fuel and everything is amazing from there.
Absolutely. So are there any like specific health conditions that can benefit potentially from the low carb, you know,
Most of them,
mimicking
most
all
of
of them?
them, yeah. So I'll just tell you this right now. So this is the best the ketogenic diet. And again, I'm going to wrap a bubble around this so everybody understands what I mean when I say the
Sure.
ketogenic diet. If you're eating a diet, let's not even put a label on it. If you're
Yes.
eating a diet that is low in total carbs, zero processed foods, mostly animal meat, then you are going to be meeting the nutrition requirements that your body has, and you're going to reap all the benefits of that. Here's what happens. Most of the chronic metabolic diseases that we see in society today come from what we call metabolic syndrome,
Yes.
right? Everything from insulin resistance, diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, PCOS, autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, all of these
Yes.
things, right? Gut issues, right? There's a lot of gut,
Yes.
GERD,
Absolutely.
IBS, Crohn's, ulcerative
A
colitis,
lot of
IBD, urgent
inflammatory
bowels,
stuff. Yep.
all this stuff. It's all about inflammation and the body doing things that it needs to do to adapt to the environment we're creating for it, but it doesn't want to do if it didn't have to do it.
Yes.
So when we take away all those things that are causing the inflammation, if we take away all of those things that are making our body do extra things, then now all that inflammation goes away, all that chronic disease goes away. So when you ask what are the benefits of eating this way, the benefits of eating a whole foods animal-based diet with very low carb is, in my experience, and this is my experience having
Yes.
IBS and urgent bowels and
Yes.
being over fat. This is my experience working with hundreds of people who have had all types of different conditions over the past 14 years.
Mm.
Every single chronic issue that I've ever seen anybody have has improved by moving to this way of eating.
Wow.
Everything that I listed, IBS, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis,
Mm.
um, PCOS, Hashimoto's, fibromyalgia,
Yep.
uh, type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, uh, hypertension, cardiovascular
Endometriosis,
disease,
everything.
and
Yep.
every single thing that I've seen.
Yep.
And people like, well, there's no magic bullet. There's no way that could happen. I beg to differ.
Yes. Yeah. Because you
Food is
had gut
medicine.
problems. You had gut
Yeah,
problems too, coach, didn't you?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I used to live my life by how fast I could identify where the closest bathroom was.
Oh dear. Oh no, that's
My
not a
life
way to live.
was literally ruled from top to bottom by
Poor
where,
thing. Yeah.
everything,
Oh
where's the
dear.
bathroom and everything. It was horrible.
Oh. So, if someone's, oh, sorry, well, you're going to say something.
No, 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 no,
Sorry,
just
mate.
chuckling, thinking back on those days.
Yeah, well, you've come very far. You look fab. You look absolutely fab.
Thanks.
I saw that video with your mum the other day too. I was like, oh my God. Awesome. Awesome. For someone considering the low carb diet, what are some important tips or considerations you'd offer?
Take it slow.
Okay.
Don't unless unless you're just that kind of person and you want to jump right in, that's
Mm,
fine. And however you want to do it, that's up to you. But I
mm,
think taking your time and experimenting with things first. But really the first thing is to understand, and this is anything that you want to do, whether it's fitness,
yes.
whether it's work, life, job,
Mm,
whatever. Why do you want to do it? First thing you got to understand is set a hard and fast, this is why I'm doing it. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, you're not going to know what it's doing for you and if it even makes a difference or matters.
mm,
So, why are you doing it? What are you trying to do? What are the things I'm going to look at to see if I'm making progress
mm.
and go from there, right? So, always have a why and a direction.
Yes.
As far
Absolutely.
as
And long
as far
term.
as,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as the diet itself goes, just remember that the principle behind why it's working is what you should be kind of focusing on, not any
Yes.
specific way. The
Yeah.
only right way to do a ketogenic or low carb diet is the way that works for you.
Yes.
So just because Dr. So and so says this is how you do keto and you need to eat this much fat and this much protein, or someone else over here says you need to have this much fat and this much, screw all that.
No, it's your body.
Okay.
It's your body.
It's your body. What can you sustain? What makes
Yeah.
sense for you? What's realistic? Understanding that the minimum thing that you're trying to do is remove the stuff that's causing inflammation
Yes.
and increase the stuff that is actual nutrition.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the basics of what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And whole foods, man. Like
Absolutely.
get enough, can't get enough of it. Can't get
Yeah.
enough of it.
And then as far as adaptation and when you first get started, you may have what we call the keto flu, right? And that
Okay.
is,
Yes.
you may get headaches, you may get jitters, you may feel low on energy, you may get that crash.
Yeah.
Electrolytes. When you go
Yes.
ketogenic and you take those carbs out of your body, you take those processed foods out of your body doesn't hold on to that stuff as much. So you're going to get rid of more electrolytes than you usually do. I
Yes.
recommend that people that you don't drink any water that doesn't have electrolytes in it. Put some salt in it, get an electrolyte powder, do
Yes.
something. Everything that you drink, particularly during your transition time, should have electrolytes.
Mm.
That's my number one tip.
Yes. Like magnesium, potassium, and sodium.
Magnesium, sodium, potassium. Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
all three. Do you think there's any, or are there any potential nutrition deficiencies or health risks?
Not if you're eating a lot of animal meat.
Okay.
If you're eating red meat, if you're eating red meat, eggs, fish every once in a while,
Yes.
you'll be fine.
I
Yeah.
eat a lot of eggs and red meat.
Yep, yeah, yep. That's you're good.
Yeah, and I
It's got
have a
everything
lot
you
of
need.
wild caught fish as well, like
Hmm.
fresh and, the tin with the olive oil. I watch my
There you
oils
go.
too, you
Hmm.
know, tell my clients, you've got to watch what you're cooking in,
Mm.
because it can clog your arteries. It can like cause things and so many chemicals and everything. They take everything
Well,
out,
yeah, yeah.
the big
And I
man.
recommend, some people don't do well with dairy, so I personally like to use butter for everything that I do.
Oh,
But some people don't do dairy well, so
yes.
beef tallow is a really great thing. Bacon grease is really another good one.
Yeah.
Um,
Ghee.
animal fats, ghee can be good as well.
Yeah.
Animal fats are at the top of the desired list, and
Yes.
then fruit oils from there, avocado, olive, those oils from
Yes.
there, and then that's pretty much it. I wouldn't do anything outside of that.
No, no, because it's all like pretty much bad. It's
Yeah,
bad.
it's all horrible.
Yeah.
And yeah, the understanding that it's not necessarily that it's in and of itself is bad, right? If I happen to eat something that's got some, um, let's say, I don't know, canola oil on it,
Ah,
that one serving of canola oil and whatever I ate isn't going to kill me. It's not like, oh my
no,
God, I've been
unless you did it
poisoned. I
all
need
the
to go to the
time.
CDC, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the consistent, the fact that it's insidiously added to so many things that many people eat.
Oh,
So even things that don't need oil, have canola oil or grapeseed oil or some other kind of oil in them, right? That's industrial seed oil that's
yeah.
increasing the omega 6s. The omega 6 intake of the human today is so far out of whack to what we actually need.
Yeah.
That's where a ton of uh, heart disease and everything is coming from. So
Yes.
just something to think about there.
It's also
Animal
lack of
fats are the way
move.
to go.
Yeah, lack of movement too. People are just so
Well,
sedentary,
yes,
you know.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think there's any misconceptions or myths about the low carb diets? Would you like to clarify anything?
Um, I'm sure there's tons out there that eating red meat is gonna give you heart disease. We know that's a lie. That you need carbs in order to exercise. We know that's not true. Again, exogenous. You don't need to eat them. Your body can make them. So it's not that you
Yeah.
don't need them to exercise. You don't need to eat them to exercise.
Yeah.
Um, that carbs help build muscle. Carbs don't help build muscle.
Mm.
Protein does. Fat intake does. Um,
Yes.
that it's not sustainable. I think that's the biggest one that people need to understand is,
Mm.
again, getting away from the label. If I came to you and said, hey, here's a diet plan that I want you to follow, only eat whole foods. You can eat whatever whole foods you want, prioritize animal meat, and do whatever else you want to do from there.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
that's really what we're talking about. It's
Exactly.
whole food, prioritize animal meat. If you get a good portion of animal meat with every meal, and then whatever else you want to have, if it's veggies, if it's a sweet potato, if it's a white
Yep.
potato, whatever, great. You're probably going to see a drastic improvement in your health and everything else about your life. So, I mean, and essentially that's what ketogenic diet is. It's getting away from the crap. It's getting away from the cake and the cookies and the chips and the all of the other things. If you think about, it's prioritizing bioavailability and nutrient density. So what are the most
Yes.
nutrient dense foods available? Animal meat is the most nutrient dense food available. What is
Yes.
the most bioavailable food? Animal meat is the most bioavailable. Our body digests and utilizes nutrition from animal meat better than any other thing there is.
Mm.
So if you can prioritize that first, and then you make any other thing that you want, that's a plant, because essentially we're talking about animals and plants. Any
Yes.
other plant that you want to add, whether it's a veggie, your favorite veggie, if it's carrots, if it's squash, if it's zucchini, if it's Brussels sprouts, whatever it is, if you want to
Yeah.
add that, go for it, add
Go
it in,
in.
but add
Yep.
it in as a secondary thing
Yes.
to making sure you get the actual nutrition first.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I tell my clients about bone broth too. Like
Yeah, sure.
we have bone broth. My husband and I have been cooking like beef soup in the pressure cooker for 2 weeks
Hmm.
because it's so freezing over here. I just
Okay.
got sick and I got really well after a week. So
Hmm.
I was better. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're having the meat and the collagen that comes off it and taking the fat out, the fat off the top and stuff, because it's a lot of
Hmm.
fat, but we left a
Yeah.
bit in there, for flavor.
You can cook other stuff. Cook your eggs in that fat.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
It's
We
so
did that.
yummy. Yep.
We did that.
Yep.
And it's just, my husband does that. He's Filipino, so he's quite Asian. He puts it on top of the rice or whatever he's boiling.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
he's like practical and so fun. And yeah, we just love our soup. Just awesome,
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
It's a
your
great way to
clients
go.
have bone broth and stuff with their gut as well, like in terms of their
Yeah,
gut?
we do. So when I have people that have gut issues, one of the probably the most common protocol that I work with people is either just going strict carnivore for a period of time and kind of seeing what happens,
Yep.
and or doing the GAPS diet protocol for a while. So I have some people that have issues and we get them on GAPS and they follow that protocol,
Yep.
and kind of see what happens with their gut and trying to repopulate, introduce some yogurt or some fermented things, repopulate some gut bacteria, things like that.
Yes.
And it's been very helpful. I know uh, someone that I know very well has been playing around with that, and she's had some success
Oh,
introducing some fermented cultures and things like that back in to help
yes.
rebuild her gut. So it's been great. Yeah.
That's cool, like kimchi and a kombucha and stuff as well. You got to watch the sugars in the booch.
Yeah, yeah, she's been doing mostly yogurt. She got a starter culture and has been doing her own yogurt
Wow.
lately. Yeah.
I took a probiotic with me when we went to Philippines 2 years ago, and I got some
Hmm.
coconut milk and I made my own.
That's what she's doing. She's doing coconut yogurt, coconut milk
Yes,
yogurt with
but
a
it's
culture.
very
Yep.
strong. You've got to only have a tiny bit because it's
Hmm.
like very potent.
Yeah.
I had
Yep.
too much. I was like, oh my God, oops. There's a bathroom.
I know
Um,
that feeling.
yeah, yeah. So we're going to wrap up soon, but I want to talk about your book launch. How was
Sure.
that?
It's going great. The book comes out in September, the weekend of Labor Day weekend in the US, so September 3rd.
That's
It
cool.
is the book is called Body Confident. You can get the pre-order now on Amazon.
Okay.
And it's really just a about helping people do a couple things. One, understanding what their journey is really about. A lot of people come to me talking about weight loss, fat loss, looking better, feeling better, all those types of things. And usually that isn't a strong enough motivation for them to stick with their journey long enough to see success.
Mm,
A lot of people fall off over time because they're the real reason they're not connected to the real reason why they want to do it. So
okay.
helping people understand that it's not about looking good, but it's about what you can do and feeling good about yourself. So
Mm,
understanding what actual confidence in your body really means, and
mm,
then how can you achieve that.
mm.
So that's the first thing. The second part of it is the how you do it part is the what is the process and how do we make sure that we can be successful every single time. And no matter what the goal is, no matter where you are in your life, what is the framework that's of success? Basically, I took what I've learned over the past 10 plus years of coaching from myself and everybody that I've worked with, and like, what are the things that everybody that I've seen that has had success, what are the things that they're the same for all of them?
Oh, that's fab.
Everybody that's had success is doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this. What are the commonalities across successful people who
Mm,
have reached a goal, who have gone through a struggle and figured out how to get to the other side? And I put all that stuff in the book, right? So there's a step-by-step guide on how to evaluate where you are and where you should be focusing your energies on the next step to get you to the next
I'll be
place.
getting it, coach. I'll be
Yeah.
definitely get pre-ordering it. I'll put the link
Awesome.
in
Appreciate
the
it. Yeah.
podcast as well, mate. Any final thoughts you'd like to give the listeners who are curious about trying low carb and carnivore?
Yeah, I would say try it. You never know if you don't try, so you almost owe it to yourself to give it a shot.
Yep.
Right. And then when you do that, just remember that, there's a guideline basically, like I said, it's about cleaning up the things that are causing harm.
Yeah.
And it's not about meeting any arbitrary guideline or goal that anyone else has set out there. So figuring out how can I optimize my nutrition? How can I eliminate and remove the harmful things?
Yes.
Right. And that
Amen.
may not even mean you go low carb or keto. For some people getting started, that may just mean, hey, I'm going to stop drinking a Coke 3 times a day.
Oh,
Maybe that's step number one. Maybe, and this is the thing about understanding where you really are and what you can do sustainably.
yes.
Some people try to go keto, they're not ready for keto yet. They're not ready for low carb. They just need to stop eating a Pop Tart for breakfast, right? Maybe that's the change that you need to make. So, what
Yeah.
is the changes you need to make? Understanding it's just about eliminating the harmful and doing things that are more beneficial.
Yes.
So, at whatever level that is.
I want to thank you for meeting with me today. Your insights were absolutely fab. And
Thank
I'm
you.
going to get
Appreciate
your
it.
book, mate. And it's really lovely to meet you. And I wish you well with everything on your journey. And yeah, and that's it for
Thank you very
today.
much. All
Yeah,
right. Take
thank
it easy.
you. I'll catch you
See ya.
later.